Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Alec Reed. This is my channel, Alec Reads. Today we are reading Marriage, a Heartstopper fanfiction by heartstopper_fan22 on Wattpad. I do want to let you all know that this is being filmed on my new microphone, so I'm really hoping that it goes well. And if it sounds any different, if it sounds better, great. If it doesn't, let me know so that I can try and fix it. Anyway. Today we are reading chapter 13, and I'm going to try and read longer chapters. I'm trying to read more than 2 chapters now, just so that you guys can have some longer videos. If you don't like the longer videos, let me know in the comments and I will go back, but I don't know, I just thought that I might give you guys the option to have the longer videos or the shorter videos. I might also make a playlist so that you can find them all in order and everything so that you don't have to click through everything. But anyway, we are going to jump right in and yeah, if you have any recommendations, leave them down in the comments, whether it's books or fan fictions. I will try and read them, and I will try to do my best to read them the best I can. Keep in mind, I am dyslexic, and I do have tics and stutter, so I have to do a lot of editing on my videos. So some books are harder for me to read than others. But anyway, yeah, just like, subscribe if you like my content, and if you would like to continue seeing it. Anyway, let's jump right in. Chapter 13, Hospital. 2 hours of waiting later, I was playing on my phone while waiting for the doctor to come assess Charlie. Panda Pop was my favorite iPhone game because of the cute little pandas. "Hi, is that Charlie Spring?" the doctor says, as he points to Charlie laying on the stretcher. "Yes, he is Charlie Spring," I quickly replied. I was so anxious just to know if there was anything seriously wrong with him. He looked over Charlie, did a few blood tests, and other things to him. He was typing away on his computer after checking out Charlie. "Hi, sorry to bother you, but do you know what's wrong with him?" He looks at me and gives me a stern look. "Son, your friend will be fine, but I can't classify info to friends. Do you have his girlfriend's number or any of his family members' numbers?" I kind of chuckle under my breath. Sir, I'm his boyfriend of 6 years, I said. He was old and seemed very old school, but I didn't expect him to say what he said. Oh, God. Maybe instead of taking him to the hospital, you should have admitted him to conversion therapy, along with yourself. I have dealt with rude comments and judgmental looks, but this was disgusting. I didn't trust him handling Charlie when Charlie was in no state to defend himself. The next nurse I saw walk by, I called over. "Miss, excuse me, I know you're probably busy, but can I speak to you for a minute?" "Oh, darling, of course." She was a sweet lady and had the most beautiful braids filled with all kinds of colors. "This doctor right here is being extremely homophobic and demonizing to my almost unconscious boyfriend. Being his only advocate here, I want him to have another doctor, please. I'm concerned for his safety." She looked shocked and then angry. "You're one smart young man, and on my behalf of the hospital, I'm so sorry. I will let his doctor know that he can't continue his inspection, and we'll get him a new doctor immediately." "Thank you so much," I say. I could see Charlie from a distance. The whole time I was talking to the nurse, just to make sure he didn't do anything to him. I walked back into the room to sit and watch until the nice nurse I just talked to came in and said, "Dr. Kev, you've been kicked off this inspection, and Dr. Trace will be taking over." The doctor looked mad, but left in a hurry. Just him touching my Charlie made me sick, but I'm happy Charlie wasn't conscious enough to hear that horrible comment. Things like that stuck with Charlie a lot more than they did me. "Hi, you must be Charlie Spring's boyfriend, correct?" Dr. Trace said. "Yep," I replied. Then she goes on. "Well, I need to admit him since he's clearly not fully conscious. I don't know how long yet. We need to wait for the rest of the tests to come back. I will set him up, and you can just wait in this room till he's all set up. I thought he would have been admitted, but hearing the news still hurt. Okay, I'll wait here, I say. She then takes Charlie into the elevator. All I could do now was wait. 30 minutes later. Hi, he's ready, and should be waking up soon if you want to come see him, Dr. Shea said. Yes, please, take me to him. She leads me to the elevator, to the fourth floor. The patients were divided by curtains, and all of them looked sickly. She said, he's in slot 6, and at the very end, before rushing off to save someone else. I walked down, and when I saw him, I felt so guilty. He was lying there with a feeding tube hooked up to him. When he had to go to a mental hospital, he said they threatened him with that if he didn't eat all his meals and snacks. It was his worst nightmare. When he wakes up, he's going to freak out. They also had an IV hooked up to his arm. Charlie was also petrified of needles. I sat there in the chair beside him for almost 45 minutes, just talking to him, just in case he could hear me. I wanted him to wake up to the sound of my voice. My head popped up when I hear, Nick, I want to go home. Charlie was awake and looked so much better. His eyes were wide open and his voice sounded natural. Charlie, you can't just yet, but probably soon. You look a lot better, I say while kissing him on the forehead. Charlie's hand goes up to his nose and he starts tugging on the feeding tube. I grab his hands and intertwine our fingers. He tried to get his hands free from mine, but I didn't let him. Nick, stop. Let go of me. Charlie, you need to not touch that, okay? Don't freak out, but you have a feeding tube so you can regain your strength, okay? He starts to panic and frantically look around like I was hurting him or something. I knew in that moment he wasn't fully himself. He was still in a state of shock. Let me go, he says, while trying to tug his hands away from my grip. Charlie, please stop, I say calmly. I didn't really know what to do, except I knew that if I let go, he would try and rip out his feeding tube, and that would be dangerous. So I didn't let go. Let me go. Let me go. Let me go, he says while sobbing. I never felt like more of an asshole in my life. I felt heartbroken. I have never seen Charlie like this before. He was acting crazy, but I knew if I called the nurse, he would be strapped down, and I couldn't let that happen to him. It would break him. The only thing I could think of was to call Tori. She could always calm him down. I held both of his hands with one of mine and rang Tori. Chapter 14. A Trip. Tori sounded worried on the phone, but always stayed calm and rational. She was almost here. Charlie was still crying. It hurt me so much to see him like this. I could see in his eyes that he was hurt. He looked at me in disgust, like I was the one who did this to him. I just hope when he rests up and isn't on any drugs, he will forget all of this happened. Finally, Tori comes in, speeding over to me and Charlie. I was there with my one hand gripped around his two hands, stopping him from ripping out his feeding tube. Charlie was laying there, tugging his arms, facing his face away from me, like he didn't want to even look at me. I wasn't enjoying this at all. I hated every minute of holding the love of my life down so he couldn't hurt himself. It couldn't be selfish in this situation. I needed to do my best for Charlie. Right? Tori's perspective. The moment Nicholas called me and told me my sweet brother was in the hospital, I freaked out a little. But Nicholas was taking care of him. But when he told me that he had a feeding tube and an IV, I knew this was going to be too much for Nick to handle on his own. Nicholas had told me he happened to help. I got in my car and got straight to the hospital. I rapidly walked towards Sector 10 and see them. When I saw them, Charles had been facing the other way from Nicholas, crying, while Nicholas was holding his hand so he couldn't disable the feeding mechanism that had been installed inside of him. "Thank God you're here, Dory," Nicholas said. I looked at him and gave him a proper reassuring look. I bend down to Charles. I wipe away the tears on his face and say, "Charlie, can you stop crying, please? I would like to have a word with you." He looks up at me and says, "Dory, you're here. Please get him off me. I'm proper confused. Why didn't he want Nicholas here so much? I mean, I know he's holding him back, but Charlie must know how down and awful that must have been for Nick. No, Charlie, trust me. I wouldn't lie to you. Nicholas is trying to help you. You've been in an accident, and him and Darcy saved you." Charlie looked kind of confused, then happy. Charlie's perspective. "Tori, my sister, told me that Nick and Darcy saved me. It then clicked. I was at the beach, and Tal pushed me in the water, and I was swimming away, and maybe that's why Nick was holding me back. I thought he was trying to force me to go to a mental hospital for my eating disorder again. I'm so confused. My head hurts, I'm tired, I feel all loopy." Nick's perspective. Tori fully calmed him down. He wasn't resisting me anymore. His hands feel loose in my grip. He then looks at me and says, in a drunk-sounding voice, "Wait, I was at a beach, and Tao pushed me in the water." I smiled at him and said, "You're right. We were at the beach. I went to grab you water, and then you were gone." His eyes were wide, and then says, "I thought you were trying to take me away and send me to the mental hospital again. Please don't. I hate it there." He starts to cry again. It makes sense why he was trying to rip the feeding tube out. He didn't want to go back, and I don't blame him. I started to cry because he was so scared and confused. I brush his hair out of his eyes and say, "Charlie, I love you. You're not going back there. You're here because you almost drowned." He doesn't react or say anything. "Char, can I come lay with you?" He says, "Yeah, don't leave me." I carefully move Charlie over and crawl into the small hospital bed beside him. He laid his head on my chest. Once I knew he had fallen asleep, I let go of his hands and carefully cuddled him. After being in the hospital for hours, it was 2 a.m. and I hated leaving Charlie, but I was exhausted. I created a plan. I would go home, sleep till 5:30, get in the car, and get to the hospital for around 6 before Charlie woke up. I needed to be there early so he would wake up to me being beside him. Hours later, 6 a.m., I just arrived back at the hospital. I was still exhausted because sleeping without Charlie in our bed was awful. I grabbed my favorite peach soda and Charlie's favorite strawberry soda on my way out. When I saw him, he was still asleep. Yes, I made it in time. I quickly crawled into the hospital bed with him again and waited till he woke up. A few hours later, I fell asleep and woke up to the sound of, "Nick, Nick, Nick." I opened my eyes and look at Charlie looking at me. I said, "Charlie, how are you feeling?" His face turned disappointed, then said, "I'm sorry, Nick. I was an idiot. I should have just got out of the water and told you I wanted to go home instead of swimming too far away. And then I just remembered Darcy talking to me, then being on a weird island with you and Darcy, then in the hospital here. I also had a dream that you were trying to send me away to the mental hospital again. I was shocked. He remembered almost everything that happened. I guess last night he had been on some drugs that probably was the reason he was so confused. I was just relieved to have my normal Charlie back. I then replied, no saying sorry when you don't do anything wrong. Tao was being an idiot, and all that matters is you and Darcy being okay. He snuggled close. When he gotten close, I noticed he hadn't had a feeding tube in anymore. The nurse must have removed it last night. She said something about him only needing it to regain his strength. Ring, ring, ring. I answered it. It was my mom. We talked, and I told her about Charlie. She was super concerned. I swear she loved Charlie more than me. We were talking, and then she reminded me of something I was dreading. Is Charlie going to be okay for a Morocco trip? She says. The phone was on speaker, and Charlie replied to her with, yes, the nurse told me earlier that I could go home today. Damn. I wish I could have used it as an excuse not to go. Charlie was so excited to go. He's never been there and wanted to spend more time around my other family that lives there. My mom says, good to hear, you two. Love you both. Then she hangs up. I look at Charlie and say, we definitely don't have to go if you don't want, Char. He snaps his head around to look at me and says, no, I want to go so badly. Plus, I'll be more prepared this time. I won't pack any white t-shirts. All I could think was, great. Just great. Chapter 15. Sneaking around. Mentions of drug consumption, so be careful. Charlie was supposed to be released today from the hospital, but he got held back till tomorrow just in case, even though I thought he seemed perfectly normal. My two worst nightmares were coming true, being stuck in a hotel room with David and Charlie in the hospital. Besides all that, when I was at the hospital today, my old friend Harry wanted to catch up. Harry was a proper ass to Charlie when we first were friends, but he started to be nice around a few months after we announced we were a couple to our old school. I was so worried about Charlie, I thought maybe it would be the perfect thing to get off my mind. Charlie being in the hospital and going with David. I agreed to go only because he seemed to be a nice human being now. Every time I posted a cute couple pic on Insta, he would always like it and comment something nice. I was kind of excited. He said that his other friends were coming too. I don't know them, but they're probably nice. Me, Harry, and some other mates were meeting up at a pub for some drinks. Charlie loved beer. I was more of a fruity drink kind of guy. When I got there, I saw Harry for the first time in forever. He was still short. Hey, mate, I say. I wave over to him and some other guys. Harry said, long time no see, huh, mate? I nodded and sat down. We were all chatting. Well, they were. I was more quiet. I couldn't get Charlie out of my mind, plus the whole vacation thing wasn't any better. One guy whipped out a familiar-looking object. It was small and cylindrical, with a fun color plastered on the side, reading Tropical Punch. Then said, hey, I haven't seen one of those since 11th grade. The guy smiled and said, trust me, mate, they're still just as good. Harry grabbed the vape out of his hands and starts hammering it. He then goes, love the head rush these give me. The guy took it from Harry and handed the fruity-smelling tube to me. "Have some, mate. You'll like it." I kind of thought back to high school when I loved having a few hits before a big test or something stressful. I remember this one time before a huge rugby match, all the guys sat in the locker room and would exchange different flavors, and it would be nice to help numb the stress. I only mentioned it to Charlie once that I vaped before. Let's just say he was far from impressed. Ben then walked up to the table. I guess Harry invited him. God, I still hated him. Ben then goes, "Don't bother, mate. He's gay, remember? Everyone knows those type of guys don't know how to have a good time if it hit him in the face." I wasn't going to let him tell me what gay guys do. I grabbed the vape and said, "I love this flavor." I took a few hits and remembered this feeling, the head rush and the scratching of my throat. It felt natural and good. I kept hitting it throughout the night. My thoughts became thinner. I felt light and free. I was going on my way. Then the guy came up to me and said, "Here, mate, I got plenty more." He then throws the vape to me. I caught the vape with one hand and felt happy he had given it to me. It really helped with the stress. I forgot all about the trip already. Chapter 16. Bad Decisions. When I got home, I had the vape. Charlie would be so disappointed, so I just threw it in the bottom of our nightstand drawer. I will dispose of it in the morning, before picking up Charlie from the hospital. It was pretty late, and I just wanted this day to be over, so Charlie could be back home where he belonged with me. I tried to fall asleep for hours, but the bed was cold and empty without Charlie. I had this nagging urge to hit the vape. Okay, one last time, I thought. But throughout the night, when I started to toss and turn, I hit the vape, then tried to fall back asleep. I woke up at 5:30. I didn't bother trying to go back to sleep. I left our home and headed towards the hospital after drinking some soda for caffeine. I walked through the front door of the hospital, up the elevator, and turned down Sector 10, and then saw Charlie. He looked normal and healthy. "Hi, Char. I need a hug so bad," I said before he could say anything. I crawled up on the hospital bed and cuddled up beside him. He laid his head on me and said, "I missed your warm body. You also smell so fruity. I like it." Finally, after 2 more hours of being at the hospital, Charlie's stay was finally over. As we were walking out of the hospital, we spot Tao and Elle walking towards us. Tao says as he gets out, "Hi guys, we've been so worried about Charlie." I didn't tell Charlie that Tao and Elle had been texting me nonstop, asking what happened, is Charlie okay, and stuff like that. Charlie easily forgives people, but I don't, especially when they hurt my Charlie. I grabbed Charlie's arm and said, "Come on, let's go home. You need rest." I pulled Charlie into the car, and he got in. "Nick, I could have talked to them." "I know, but you could, but I couldn't. They hurt the person I loved, and I can't forgive them." He held my hand and looked me in the eyes. "Aw, you're such a protective boyfriend, but you know you're going to have to forgive them, eventually." I shake my head no, and just hold his hand so tight. Once we arrived home, I picked Charlie up out of the passenger seat and carried him up to our apartment. He just laughed as I carried him. We were on the couch watching a film when Charlie says, "Maybe we should go start packing tonight because the trip is in 4 days, and you know how much it stresses me out when we leave that kind of stuff to the last minute." I smile and say, "If that will help you be less stressed, then of course." I squished his cheeks around, then kissed him multiple times. I missed you, I whisper in his ear after kissing his neck. Later on that evening, Charlie brings up the fact that we should go pack again. It's not that I don't want to pack, it's the fact that I don't want to go at all. Nick, I'm going to start packing. Join me if you want, and don't blame me if I pack the wrong stuff. I'm coming. Give me a sec. I walked out onto our balcony to get some air. Charlie's perspective. I started to pack because leaving stuff to the last minute was so stressful. I just wanted to get it done. I'm coming in. Just give me a sec, Nick yells from the living room. Then I hear the balcony door slide open and close. That was so odd. Nick and me never used our balcony, and why was he just going out there for no reason? I stood up from where I was packing and went to go see what Nick was doing. I looked out at the back balcony and saw Nick scrolling through his phone with a vape in his hands. I was so mad. I stormed out there. I went right up to him and smacked the vape out of his hand. The small cylindrical object rolled off the balcony and plummeted to the ground. What the actual fuck, Nick? Wait, Charlie, it was stupid. I didn't want to hear his bullshit. I went to our room and slammed the door shut. Nick banged on the door and was saying for me to let him in. I felt so angry with him, but deep down inside, I knew that I should hear him out. I opened the door and hugged him while saying, I'm so mad at you right now, but I want you to know I still love you. Nick hugs me so tight and then said, Charlie, it was stupid. I was hanging out with Charlie and Ben and Harry and the trip, and it made me really stressed. Ben showed up and said some homophobic stuff, and I lost it and went along with it. Nick was so worried about me that he needed to hang out with people like Harry to get this off his mind. That made me feel horrible. And it was a horrible idea, and I felt so loved. Nick then started crying and says it was so dumb, and I'm so embarrassed. That is the end of our reading. I read 4 chapters this time. I hope that you guys like the longer videos. If not, let me know in the comments. This next video, we will be reading at chapter 17, OCD Struggles is what the next chapter is called. But yes, please like, subscribe, and let me know what you think, and also give recommendations in the comments. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Good morning, good afternoon, or good night, and goodbye, ladies, gentlemen, and everything in between.